Trustees of the College of the Sequoias Community College District. It is 5:01. And for closed session, we had no actions to report, no actions taken. I'll ask you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and ask Trustee Cardoza to lead us.
Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. For public comment, per Board Policy 2350, any person may address the board at this time. First of all, welcome. Thank you all for being here. You may address the board at this time on either an item on the agenda or an item that is even not on the agenda that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of this board. Maximum 5 minutes is allowed for each speaker, with a maximum of 15 minutes per item unless otherwise extended by the board. So we'll first ask for public comments for items on the agenda. Anyone have a comment on item on the agenda? Hearing, seeing none. Did anyone have a comment on an item that is not on tonight's agenda? Yes, please. If you wouldn't mind coming to the podium, just identify yourself, please, and welcome. Well, thank you.
Good afternoon, President Calvin and board members. My name is Ellen Waitala, and I'm coming to you as a concerned citizen and taxpayer in Visalia, California. I do have a handout that I would like to share with you that is guiding my presentation for the next couple of minutes, so may I pass this down? I come to you with some questions for you to consider, because I understand this is just a time for me to share, and you're just going to consider my thoughts. Okay, so I have a question for you all. What is appropriate curriculum material and conversation during instruction time during a COS class? Do instructors have limits placed on their choice of materials and speech during classroom discussion? Or do they have unlimited academic freedom to do and say as they wish? And the other question is, why does the faculty at Sequoias Community College District Academic Senate need a statement of academic freedom? And I have an example. The first example for you, what I did is I took screenshots of the video because I didn't know what I had available for any kind of graphics or anything, but on March 2nd of 2023, the example I have for you is during an English 1 class that was instructed by Jeremiah Henry. He chose to use an example for his discussion on rhetorical analysis. And you'll see on the handout, there's a picture of a Jim Crow posture, and that was used to be compared to a contemporary video that was put out by, his name was Childish Gambino in 2018. It was a music video called This Is America. Okay, having any kind of discussion on rhetorical analysis is fine. That is the correct, that was what was being taught that night. However, at the end of comparing the two pictures, the video was played in its entirety, and the pictures below show you what the students in the class witnessed that night in their English 1 classroom. They witnessed 2 separate, explicitly graphic violent scenes. One, a gentleman was being shot in the back of the head and fell down. And then the second one was a choir that was being taken out, mass execution style. This was being shown in an English 1 class that had nothing to do with the curriculum being taught that night. Okay, that's my first example that goes along with the questions I have. The second example is comments that are being made in the classroom by Instructor Henry during his English 1 Tuesday, Thursday night class. And on Thursday, March 16th, there are different sentences or comments that he made in class. I don't know how to use this. Okay, there we go. Comments that he made in class that I think I need you to be aware of, because as a citizen, I'm just really questioning this type of vernacular being used in the classroom. I'm a retired teacher. I would never speak like this to children of any age. But these are the comments that were made in class.
Try to share at least a portion of it with all of my classes because it is fucking profound.
Okay.
Why can't we're like, no, fuck that, we don't want to isolate.
Okay, so I wrote out the text. You get the idea. So these are comments from being made in class, during class time, and you're wondering, like, well, you're not a student in the class. No. I'm a concerned citizen that was brought to because the person in the class was very traumatized by these experiences. So I'm here representing them. And then my final thoughts that I put on the bottom for my presentation is the portrayal of violent execution-style murder during class instruction time is unacceptable. Our country needs to heal from the many shootings, and there was just one yesterday. We should not glorify the violence or the perpetrators. As a taxpayer, I expect my tax dollars to provide a safe learning environment for all students. The use of the F word, as common vernacular in a classroom setting is inappropriate and unnecessary. As a taxpayer, considerations must be given that there may be minor students. I understand that there are high school students that are here on campus taking classes to accelerate their credentials or to accelerate their education. An educator's role, in my mind, is to model appropriate behavior while on campus as a representative of the school. And finally, I understand that there is a draft going around about academic freedom that the staff, the faculty, would like to have support on. But the question I have is, the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution already grants freedom to teach and to research. So the question is creating a separate document necessary? The examples provided in this presentation demonstrate that COS instructors already exercise their academic freedom as well as their freedom of speech. Thank you.
Your words and your willingness to come forward are much appreciated. You have not fallen on deaf ears. Thank you. I'll leave that capable hands. Any other public comment on items not on the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move to the board and executive staff report. First, Mr. Garbani, for student trustee.
Everybody, I just have a few things to report on. Student Center hosted its second tailgate of the semester at the home swim meet on March 24th. It was a successful turnout with supplies essentially running out this go around, which if you guys remember last time at the baseball event, it didn't turn out so well. So it was pretty awesome. This past March, on the 17th through the 22nd, the Student Senate attended a leadership conference in Washington, D.C. We listened to different speakers and attended multiple workshops, crafting leadership and professional skills. We also got the opportunity to speak with Trevor Smith, an analyst working for the Speaker of the House, and Congressmember Kevin McCarthy. We spoke about issues in regards to the DREAM Act of 2023, the Pell Grant, and the Higher Education Reauthorization Act, and how they affect our students here on campus. As As far as the Tulare campus, I got some notes from the provost. The COS equestrian team had a successful run at the IHSA Western semifinals at the University of Findlay in Ohio. All the competitors got callbacks and had great rides against very tough competition. The campus of Tulare hosted its first ever Connect Recruit Hire event on March 21st. 60 employees from a wide variety of ag and trades-related companies showed up to network with COS students, and it was very successful. The COS Livestock Show team competed at the California Collegiate Livestock Show in March, and several students placed well in their respective classes. And then in collaboration with the Health Center, nearly 200 students attended the midterm de-stress event in March. Students had the opportunity to build a de-stress kit, paint a rock, and plant a seed, and join the wellness club. That's all.
Questions, comments?
Thanks for being here.
Next up is board member reports. I would note that Trustee Sherman is not with us tonight. He is out of the area in a planned trip and sends his regards. So with that, Trustee Nunes, you have any item?
Yeah, just one, I had the pleasure of attending the theater arts presentation of Jekyll and Hyde, and it was, as usual, they did a fabulous job.
Two events that I wanted to highlight that I attended this last month was one of them being the COS Civic Engagement Series, where it was in honor of Women's History Month, and really appreciated the conversation that took place of women in politics, and wanted to thank Dr. Randy Villegas and the entire political science department for hosting those events. It's the second one that I've attended. The second event is the 27th annual Cesar Chavez event that took place at COS. It started off with the march, peaceful march, in near Whitman Center, and they marched all the way to Redwood, played music, sang songs, and then walked all the way to COS, where they were welcomed with live entertainment, art, music, poetry, and then pozole, so some food for all the students. And there was quite a few students there, so I was really happy to see the event take place, and happy to see COS involved.
Just to the college experience.
Yes.
Very good. Trustee Cardoza?
I also attended the theater production, and like, as Ken said, it was amazing. We're so lucky to have such talented people in our community and then to see the talent of the students. And it's my understanding too that they had to switch gears quickly for this production, and I thought, well, you would have never have noticed that they switched gears from something that they thought they were doing to this, which was opposite, because it was fabulous. So yeah, I didn't want it to be over, and I'm not a real theater person, I'll be honest. Sometimes at the end I get a little squirmy, I don't sit still very long, and with that one I was kind of sad when it was over because it was so good.
right.
So if you missed it, catch the next one, because they do a fine job over there. Yeah.
Very good. I don't have anything further to say beyond what's been said. Next up is the foundation report. Mr. Foster.
Hello, I have no report. I just wanted to make sure you folks had the reminder of the upcoming events. Thank you.
Tim, I know I have this on my calendar, but the date for the golf tournament is what?
Yes, it's April
You guess.
28th.
28th, okay.
April 28th, Friday, April 28th.
Not 218th?
218?
Yeah. I think you were predicting my golf score.
That's right. Accreditation report, Dr. Lucerna.
No report.
There you are. Superintendent President's report, Dr. Calvin.
Thank you, President Lane, appreciate that. Just a couple items. Dovetailing on what Mr. Foster just talked about, we do have 3 CSF luncheons honoring high school students. Hanford is coming up on Wednesday at the Civic Auditorium, if you care to make that. Tulari's is at the Tulare Veterans Memorial Building on Thursday. And then Friday will be, next Tuesday will be Visalia at the Visalia Convention Center. That's where we We take all the lifetime CSF award winners from our feeder high schools in those cities and put them up on stage and allow them to introduce themselves and tell us what college they're going to. Some are COS, some are Harvard. You never know. And it's really a lot of fun to meet those CSF lifetime members. So that'll be in the next 7 days or so. On Friday, we had what we call our MAPS event, and I forget what the acronym is. Maybe somebody can help me, but it's our opportunity to bring close to 2,000 local sixth graders from Visalia Unified on our campus and meet faculty, staff, administrators, and see the various programs represented on our quad. Tours and breakout sessions, really a lot of fun. I believe, maybe Vice President Morrison can confirm, is this the first one we've had since the pandemic?
Yes.
Okay, so we were ripping and roaring there for several years before COVID hit, and Friday was our first day back, and just want to thank our fabulous staff for the job they did. I remember when Visalia Unified asked Jessica and I if we could pull this off, 1,800 to 2,000 sixth graders on our campus in one afternoon, and they had been told no multiple times, and Jessica and I said, well, why not? Let's try. And it's just been fabulous, yeah, I just want to thank Ashley and all of the staff for doing a great job. With that, Jekyll and Hyde was another unbelievable performance, and yes, we were prepared to do Shrek and had casted Shrek as of January 1, and for some reason, they must have a limit on the amount of rights that they authorize for any given season, and pulled ours back at the last minute, and it took about another week or so, and we had another candidate, and then we couldn't get the rights on that. So anyway, long story short is, instead of having probably 12 to 14 weeks, we had 7 weeks to cast and pull off Jekyll and Hyde, and you'd never know it. It was maybe second only in my 21 years here, second only to Beauty and the Beast last spring in the quad for 600 people a night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Jekyll and Hyde was on that caliber performance, so super. Our choir did make it back to Carnegie Hall and performed last week in New York City. See, I know some of you were following along Instagram and Facebook with the pictures. Just an unbelievable experience for our students, and just a lot of fun to see them perform in front of such a huge crowd at such a prestigious place. And then finally, I know everybody asks about enrollment and so forth. We were just looking at enrollment this afternoon. It is doing wonderful. We are about 25% over where we were at this time last year for fall. High school students haven't started registering yet, so we're just kind of clearing through continuing students, but about 1,000 students over where we were at this time last year. So I think we're shaking off a little bit of the doldrums. We haven't had nearly as many as what they've had statewide, but being able to shake off some of the doldrums from COVID and come back strong. So looking forward to kind of a final report, maybe midsummer, as to where we're at for fall enrollment. And that's my report.
Awesome. Thank you. Next up are reports, starting with Academic Senate President's report. I did not see Mr. Arzola. Is there anyone here to present his report? If not, we'll move to the Costa President's report. I did see Ms. Redden.
Good evening. So I just want to talk about DEI, diversity and equity, and COVID. They've highlighted many differences of opinions. So COSTA has basically sent out a climate survey to our full-time faculty to better understand the morale and the needs of our members. We want to better understand also how the administration and the faculty can work better together. And on our agenda, I see 2 faculty have submitted applications for a sabbatical recommended by the FEC, and I really hope to see that approved today. And lastly, CASA would like to express the support of our classified faculty today. We are aware that they are presenting their climate survey today, and we hope that the information is taken in a positively with the intent to create a better workplace for our classified staff. Thank you.
Next up is CSEA President's Report, Ms. Kane.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I know you guys aren't used to hearing more than a couple things out of me, so I hope you don't mind me taking a couple moments of your time today. Before I get started, I do want to preface, I did have a chance to go over with this data with President Calvin ahead of time. Some of these numbers are not going to be exciting to see. And before we start, because I understand how that can escalate internally, I want to be very clear that myself, I am a very happy employee of COS. I say very often to anybody who asks how I feel about working here that I enjoy what I do, who I do it with, and who I do it for, which is having worked in the private sector for many years, since I was 15, is not something you can say at every job that you have. And we, by and large, are very fortunate to have that here at COS. And largely, that is the sentiment that our classified staff have, that we enjoy working at COS. COS is a great place to work. And that is the lens that I want to be very clear that we are looking at this through. And all of this, I will get to the point at the end on how this really is a positive move for us. I would like to go ahead and start with just a very brief review. We don't have to go over these numbers, but these are the results from the 2021 Giant Questionnaire conducted by COS. These are the numbers that are exclusive to classified and confidential staff. So this does not include faculty, administrators, board members, or anybody else, just classified and confidential staff. So as in general, as we see, we're looking at numbers in the 80s, 90s, and we see that similar here for general questions about environment, understanding the mission and goals, believing that COS is a great place to work, that we have the tools that we need to do our jobs. Overall, we see really good high ratings. Overall, satisfaction with the work environment, 94%. We see really good ratings as far as serving our diverse populations. But in talking with some of our research analysts and other employees on campus, some concerns are had with the results. One of those being that it's a satisfied or dissatisfied binary choice, which kind of ignores the fact that people often, when we're talking about employers, have somewhat mixed feelings. It's not an either or. Additionally, the questions included in the Giant Questionnaire are all one-directional. There are no questions that assess the quality of management or the quality of the top-down structure, and I do believe that is somewhat of an issue. The questions are also all conducted at the macro level, so what I believe we call the 10,000-foot view around here, which is, COS in general. Do we have our resources in general? We don't really have any questions that break down to the department, the campus, or some on the campus level, but department level, office level, things that really get down to the root of the problem. We don't really have that. And I'm sure we can all agree that it's much easier, if you're from Visalia, it's much easier if I'm asking, is Visalia a great place to live? Sure, Visalia is a great place to live. How about the Oval? And we see that, when we really zoom in, it's not as easy to be as generous with our answers. But that doesn't mean that's a bad thing. That just helps us to show where we can improve, where do our efforts need to be best focused in order to make those improvements, to make COS the place that we want it to be. And I would like to liken this to a marriage that no one wants out of, right? CSEA and the district and the other unions, we are in this for life. This is a, and we want to be happy together. We want to see each other's needs met. We want to see morale on both sides happy. And that's where we are coming at this from, is what can we do as staff, and what advice and direction can we give to administration to improve COS for everybody involved. So that brings us to our spring 2023 classified staff member climate survey. This was put together by, I took several weeks and researched climate surveys from reputable universities across the country. There was pretty consistent lines of questions across most of them, so we stole chunks out of those, adjusted the wordage to fit our governance structure and how we do things. I conferred with one of our research analysts whose doctorate is in community psychology, and she helped me to make sure that the questions weren't leading or, add bias or anything like that, so that we could be as neutral as possible when conducting this survey. We do have 226 classified staff here at the College of the Sequoias. 200 of those are CSEA members, but just to give you an idea of the population we are looking at as we go forward. So who took it? We had 127 participants in total, which is on par with the 130 participants that the GQ received. Keep in mind that the GQ is a combined classified and confidential, whereas ours is only classified. But these next few slides are just kind of some demographic information of breakdown of who our classified staff are, and what kind of backgrounds and things might be informing their decisions and their opinions. We did find overall they're a fairly young group and fairly well educated, which is great to see. These next two sections, I'm actually going to highlight some really great things that we got from the district. And that was that overall hostile experiences are nearly non-existent. And what we mean by hostile experiences is anybody being intimidating or generally offensive from coworkers, supervisors, or faculty. And by and large, it's really not something, and unfortunately, the biggest chunk was actually from within classified staff. So that's something that it gave us direction on something that we can work on ourselves, is how can we encourage our staff members to relate better. The other positive was negative remarks on campus. So these are negative remarks, basically discriminatory remarks, things on the basis of age, skin color, disability, and things like that. The incidences of these things were extremely low in reporting, and which is something that we love to see. We'd love to see it be zero, obviously, but that's not realistic, and I think that this is about as good as we could ask for, to be honest. That moves us into overall satisfaction. So this is where the data that you guys were given begins. These are all of our percentages. You do have your sample sizes, mean and medium, for all the data that we're going to go over, so you can take a look at that. So overall satisfaction, general employee experience. As we see, in general, not fabulous. What I would like to see, and the reason we chose to go with these percentages and a grade type format, is ideally morale would be at about 70 or higher. I think if we have it at about 50, people are very indifferent about their job, and I feel like that is not something we should aspire to. We should want people to be on the positive side, the approving side, which midway would be about 70. I think that that's a good bottom goal for us to have, which is average for a grading system. It's something that all of our brains recognize, so it seemed like a decent format for us to be able to present this data. So we do see a lot of C's. It does dig down a little bit more, but a 64.5 overall. I will go ahead and point out, you will notice as we go through, people did get a little bit of survey fatigue, and the numbers will start to go down in the participants, but that was just to be expected. Depending on your campus, how likely are you to recommend? So by campuses, obviously we have less employees at the Hanford and Tulare campuses. We had significantly less participants. But I did enjoy, these numbers overall are actually fairly good, I'd like to think. They're all 70 or higher, which I think is pretty good. That's exactly what we would like to see. So we got COS got a 76.7 overall in that, which I think is good. That's something that we obviously can continue to work on, but that's not a bad place to be. How comfortable are you? So this is not as great. People are not as general happy with the climate at COS or their campus or in their unit. Now this doesn't break down. It didn't ask people for specific reasons. We did allow people to give comments on things. And I would say it's a general, well, we'll get there, but overall, it's just a feeling of discomfort and not feeling heard is the overall. People are feeling frustrated. DEIA. So overall, this one actually wasn't nearly as bad, and you'll see there was actually one that was even over an 80%, which we love to see considering that was on diversity, which, as we've highlighted, COS is pretty good at. So everything is fairly on the high end here. There is one point I would like to mark on this, and that is that COS places too much emphasis on the topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion. That particular one, I actually think that is about as good of a score as we could possibly ask for, because 50% would indicate that no one feels we are either doing too much or too little. So I think that should be. We don't really want people getting overly inundated with these types of things to the point that they get frustrated, but we also want to make sure that they are receiving feedback on that. So do want to highlight that point probably does need to be about 50, but the others, you can see kind of the same trend. Day-to-day personal work environment.
Follow that logic.
Of what, I'm sorry?
Logic of 50% should say that we're doing too much and 50% should say that we're not doing enough.
So, well,
think
so
if
that it's kind of, we want to be in the middle. We don't want people thinking that we're doing too much. We also don't want people thinking that we're not doing enough. So since this question says COS places too much emphasis, 100% would mean that we're placing too much emphasis. Does that make sense?
But then should it pull down your overall score, though?
Yeah, which is what is the caveat that I'm bringing up, is that I don't necessarily think that it should on that one point. That's why I wanted to highlight that, because I do think that's not necessarily fair. This is our day-to-day work environment, how people get along with their coworkers, with their non-staff, so relationships between faculty and staff, relationships between students and staff. And again, this one goes up higher. It does go up into that 70 range, which we do like to see. Continuous improvement. Now this one we did meet, the Professional Development Committee did meet with Management Council last year to kind of go over what could be done to improve this. And we are working on that. It does kind of seem to be a general issue of coverage in general. That seems to be our biggest roadblock to getting training for people, is having adequate coverage in offices to allow people that release time to get training. So working on, that's one thing that I could point out. In general, though, we do see a willingness for managers, or at least in word, saying that they do want people to get training, they do want people to pursue professional development. We just don't always have the resources to allow people to pursue that. Quality of management with direct supervisors. So this is people responding to the person that they directly report to. This is what I highlighted at the beginning of my presentation, was that these more in-depth looks into the departments kind of shows us where the issues are. And that same theme does carry over into district leadership. It's the exact same questions, just converted over from direct reports to district leadership. So this is the overall that took each of the categories that we reviewed and totals them up. And we see a 66.9, which is not great, but it's also not awful. This could just as easily been a 30%, which would be horrendous and something impossible to come back from. What I see is 66.9 is pushing 70, and that tells me that we are good and just need to put in a little bit of extra elbow grease on both sides to improve that relationship and improve that communication and improve that trust and get it back to where it needs to be again. I think that this is very doable within a year or two's time. I don't think this is something we can't come back from, and I think this is good overall. I know that this doesn't seem that way, but I do believe that this is a good thing. Moving forward, like I said, this does give us highlights on where we can best focus our efforts. I think a lot of that is the soft skills, the interpersonal relationships between individuals. I think we all understand that every single employee and manager and student on this campus is a completely different person than they were in February 2020. The work world is different, education is different, our students are different. What people think is within the realm of possibility or within the realm of what they are entitled to is different. And I think we all need to kind of not completely throw away the rule book, but understand that the playbook that we have gone by for all these years isn't going to be effective moving forward. And to discount that fact does an injustice to the relationship that we're trying to work on here. So we want to just encourage continued open communication that goes two directions, that is more than just a brief overview, more than just a glance over. We would like really true, substantial conversations, and really work out those kinks and rough spots so that we can really finesse this relationship into something that works well. I would love to see that number be 70 plus, and it's only a few percentage points away. That's not undoable. I feel very strongly that that is something that has to be done. But loyalty and trust are built through communication and follow through. And a lot of people don't feel like they're being heard. Or if they are being heard, they feel like it's going in one ear and out the other. And that doesn't feel good for anybody, I think, and regardless of what the relationship is. We, not just CSEA, but employees at COS really need participatory governance to not just be a buzzword for accreditation. It needs to be a way of life. And I'm really happy with the way some of our processes have been changing over the last few years because people are expressing when they feel like they're not being fully represented. Just to give you an idea, we've added an extra step for feedback on our master plan because we want to make sure that people are feeling like they're getting their feedback earlier in the process, that things aren't being dictated to them. So we're adjusting that. So COS is always making improvements. We just want to continue that momentum and keep that as the focus and keep that line of communication open. I do believe that in this time where a lot of employee-employer relationships are floundering, COS has an opportunity to be a forerunner, not just in education, but in general, on listening to employees and improving those relationships and improving how we operate as a college because everybody's voices are heard and considered and respected. So I thank you for your time. And again, COS is a great place to work, and we want to continue to make it even better. Thank you.
Hang there.
Yes, absolutely.
For a bit. I think we probably have some conversation or at least, some questions about that. I know that I would like to hear from Dr. Calvin, before the board has an opportunity to ask questions, and kind of how that feels and the response and,
Yeah.
how involved were you in the process of the questions and,
Oh, not at all.
in that
This was
cooperative nature?
completely internal.
Yeah.
Yeah, the survey was internal.
Right, in that cooperative nature that you're suggesting, I would, I'd be curious as to.
No, I actually had some classified reach out to me just to let me know what was going on. So I asked Katie on Wednesday, what it was about, and she shared with me on Wednesday before the break, and I do know that Katie's trying to do something positive here, so I don't want to sound negative about this. But as I look through the questions and so forth, I see a lot of frustration with staff being frustrated with another staff member and frustrated with the district's response to it, that we don't take corrective action quick enough and things like that. And I would just say that we hear you. I mean, we share that same frustration. A perfect example is we've got a real issue with absenteeism in our district. Have for years. And when someone chews through their sick time and their vacation time, state law, not COS policy, but state law says that they're entitled to 100 days of half pay. So if I'm out of all my leave and I call in sick tomorrow, I get paid for a half day. That's state law. And in some cases, that's certainly warranted. In a lot of cases, there's abuse, and it's very difficult to, I guess, to write up. And so what we end up with is long stretches of people on 100 days of half pay. And so guaranteed, if they were one of the 50% of our classified staff members that took this survey, that individual that's getting 100 days of half pay would have some pretty pointed comments to make about us. But even more pointed, I'm sure, and I would agree with them, is the 4 or 5 staff members in their office, because what happens when someone's on 100 days of half pay? Someone's filling in for them, right? They're in their office doing their work. That doesn't feel good. And I think those poor staff members are saying, can we just fire this person? Like, why are we giving this person 100 days of half pay when I'm doing their work? And I get those kinds of frustrating calls. And so there's context to this, I guess is what I'm saying. And I look forward to, I personally would love it, Katie, if you and your exec team would go through this and pinpoint the people that are having an issue and take them through the normal process with HR and me when necessary, and talk about what the real issue is. We've got a couple of examples, just like the one I'm talking about right now, where CSEA is defending the person on the 100 days of half pay side. I'd like to just get in a room and talk about that, because I think it really does have a negative effect on the staff members that are left behind. So that's kind of my comments. I look forward to taking this and pulling it apart a little bit, and for the ones that we can address, heck yeah, I want to address it. And then finally, I know we had 117 out of, I think you said 237 start this, and I think there was 89 or 90 that finished it. My experience has been on something like this, anyone with kind of an issue they want to talk about is going to respond to this. The other, what would that be? The other 120, 50, 55% may be a little indifferent to it. And I just wonder if the people that are indifferent or even really positive about the district, if they just didn't respond, you know, what some of those figures would look like. It wouldn't take much to get your 66.9%. Frankly, forget 70. I mean, if you had everybody responding, I think it's over 80, and maybe we're not having this presentation. So I think there's some context that I think we need to consider, but I'm all for sitting down and looking at real world examples like the one we've been dealing with the last couple of weeks about 100 days of half pay, because I'm sure that the person that person works with it had an adverse effect on some of these reports because those people are frustrated. And so I'd like to just talk about that, the unintended consequences of dealing with one person and the effect it has on the other people in the office. So that's my comments. I'm sure our board members have some questions as well.
Thank you. Board members?
Yeah, just maybe a comment and a quick question or two. I'm really having a hard time trying to wrap my arms around the fact that the highest scoring on this comes from how likely are you to recommend, as high as it is, and then the offset of that being, the low scoring section. So that's a bit of a conundrum to me. And then I think you mentioned that you referred to one of the other surveys that were yes or no type questions. Is this the same, or how were these questions? How were their responses? What were the options?
So
So
they were given a range and told basically to grade from 0 to 100. Where in this range would you grade the district or whoever was being addressed in the question?
So it was a percentage?
Correct.
And the choices were anywhere between 1
Yeah,
to
they were.
1
Yeah,
to
they were
100?
they were given a bar and asked to select where on the bar that they. Yeah.
How did you determine where those fell? Is it 50% yes or 50% no?
No, it's exactly the number that they input. There is no interpretation. This is exactly the data.
So that's
an 80 and a 20 would
score,
grade
like a
out to
grade.
a 50.
Yeah.
It'd be like giving a grade, A, B, C, D, F.
Correct.
F being the worst.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then then we took an average of everybody's. Correct.
So they could have even given an 82% or a 63. It wasn't cut and dry.
Correct.
It was any number between 0 and 100.
Correct.
Okay. I had a question. You made a comment, and I'm not asking this from any perspective. I'm just going with what you said. You said that since, COVID, and I agree with you that things have changed, I know that, but that we have to throw out the rule book. In terms of the feedback that you got from the survey, since we obviously don't work at the campus, what would you say in that rule book is something that's coming up continuously that needs to be thrown out? I guess because I'm not here in the work environment, what's changed that what would be the main thing in the rule book that needs to be redone, I guess?
I think that over the last several years, there's been a lot more awareness of emotional intelligence, empathy in the workplace, meeting people's workers' emotional needs, not just I tell you what to do, you do it, and I give you money in exchange. That there is a regard for the quality of life in that job, the quality of one's experience within that job, and the climate. And I think that truly is what's missing is often, COS is nearly 100 years old. Just like any other business that's been operating, and most businesses right now are dealing with this exact same issue. This is not an issue that's exclusive to COS. I do want to be clear about that. A lot of businesses and institutions are seeing an issue with really I think is somewhat of a cultural or generational crisis, seems like a strong word, but a shift in what your employees are expecting out of their jobs. And I think a lot of workplaces are struggling to change their mindset and approach to meet that shift and that change. We do need managers that, while they may be amazing in their field, do they know how to talk to people? Do they know how to make people actually feel heard, even if they can't follow through with, doing anything? I'll tell you right now, as union leader, the vast majority of the things that people contact me about are nothing I or anybody else can do. They're just a complaint. People just want to be heard. That's the majority of my job, and I feel like in a lot of times, and I understand when you're in charge of a large amount of people and you're fielding those questions and those complaints all the time, that's going to wear on any person. But that's where it becomes on your job as a boss, right? Even psychiatrists have to have psychiatrists. If you're a manager and you're dealing with that stress all day, that's on you to deal with your own personal and emotional needs, meet your own emotional needs so that you can meet those emotional needs of your employees within, obviously we don't want everybody to be parents and psychologists for their employees, but within reason. People just need to feel heard even if nothing can be done. I think that that's a large part of it, unfortunately. Yeah.
I just wanted to, I had a question too about the numbers, but it sounds like it's been answered. But I did want to thank you for the open communication. I am an advocate of constructive criticism, to learn from information, and so I appreciate it. I still kind of vague on, do they write 77 but it sounds like it was a scoring that they provided here, and it is important to me to hear this type of information. How we correct it or how we work together is going to be interesting as well. So I just wanted to say thank you for the open communication.
I guess I would summarize my comments that I have no desire to debate or question, the process. What I guess I feel a little bit lacking in is the so what part of that. Now what do we do, right? I mean, I understand that it just felt to me like your suggestions were kind of generalities, right? And what I'm looking for is, pick 3, pick 5, pick however many. And I think it would seem to me that the responsibility, kind of the parent portion, you say we don't all want to be, you're right, we don't. But the more you're a supervisor, the more you're a parent. It has been my personal experience. I'm not saying that as a board member, but that's just what I lived for lots of years. That parental responsibility, it seems to me, would be to ensure that those most active respondents possibly, or others in a supervisory position are sensitive, or that level of sensitive that you're describing, to their employees, and are reaching out individually to them, because this is not a collective painting. It's a painting of individual people, right? I mean, those are the ones that count, not what the overall campus looks like at the end. It's the individuals that comprise that. So my desire is that each of those individuals get heard in effect, complaining that they don't feel like they're heard to someone who has little ability to impact that, right? I'm not sure is really.
So I will say one struggle I had with collecting data on this, despite the fact that CSEA was willing to put up our own money to get our own SurveyMonkey account so the district wouldn't have access to the answers, despite the fact that we used personal email accounts so that nothing went through district communication, I still had over a dozen employees contact me letting me know that they were very grateful I was doing this, but they were so afraid of retaliation for their answers they were not willing to participate. I had several employees on the demographic section, anything that was open answered, just put an asterisk because they were afraid of retaliation for their answers. And I have had it expressed to me that there is some frustration from employees that often complaints are painted as a few problem loud people, which is why we took the time to gather data to illustrate the fact that it's not a few people. It may be a few people that are very upset. Absolutely. And that's going to be anywhere you are. You're always going to have a few people that can't be made happy. You're always going to be upset about something. But that general kind of, I really just am not crazy about what's happening. It is across the board. I will say on the opposite end of where we have employees that are very disgruntled, we don't have opposite end employees that are just so out of their mind for COS that everybody has one or two things, which is to be expected. We're never going to have 100%, and I don't think that that's a realistic thing. But I do know that it is disheartening for a lot of classified members, and this has been voiced to me several times, because they often feel that our concerns are discounted to a few disgruntled employees as opposed to the full body.
I would just, reiterate what Dr. Calvin said, is that we do have processes in place, right? And I think everybody is here because we care. If we didn't care, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't answer the questions, right?
Okay.
So I think, clearly you have a group of people who give a darn, right? And care about the people that we work with, as well as the people that we work for, which are the taxpayer, as well as the people that are the subject of our good works, right? And so I didn't hear an awful lot about the subject of our good works in there, I mean, it's, if I go to work, I get a paycheck, yep. But I'm there to serve those individuals too. Let's not get too distracted on how John feels at the expense of what John E. is not getting because John's mad. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Katie, I would just say, work with the data you have, and, John and I and anybody else that needs to, we can spend all of June on this. I mean, you've got, whatever, six weeks or whatever, to put together some real concrete things for us to work on. People that or groups of people that don't feel like they're being heard, we can certainly talk about it.
Next up is COSAFA's president update, Ms. Alberti. See her. Okay. We'll move to consent calendar. These are items that are on for consideration. They are routine and will be enacted by one motion. An item may be removed from the consent calendar at the request of any member of the Board of Trustee or any person in the audience and considered as a separate agenda item. There are 9 items, which are minutes of the previous meeting, personnel report, payment of bills, working budget approval for 2022-23, ratification of sabbaticals, Department of Rehabilitation Workability 3 cooperative agreement, physical therapist assistant program agreements, cosmetology training agreements with Estes Institute of Cosmetology, Arts and Sciences, out-of-state travel request for a Mecca National Conference. Would anyone on the board or member of the audience care to pull any of those to be dealt with individually?
President Lane, I'd like to make a comment but not pull on an item, if I may.
Certainly.
I just wanted to thank Professor Barajas for looking at an option to take some of our students to a national conference. So thank you for that consideration, that effort as well, and look forward to hearing how it went.
If there's no item to be pulled, I would consider action to accept all of the items, all of the 9 items listed.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by trustee Macareno, seconded by trustee Cardoza to accept the consent calendar as printed and published. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? No. Passed unanimously. Thank you. Next up, Dr. Lacerna for curriculum, new, modified, or deleted. Action item 10.
Good evening. We have a short report here, semi-short. The first page is course modifications. These are all here for 5-year review, just the regular updates. Same on the second page. These are all course modifications, just, again, 5-year review, minor updates. Page 3, we have some program modifications. These are all for 2-year review, just minor changes to course lists. And that's it, very short one. So the recommendation, this has been approved by the Academic Senate and the Curriculum Committee, and the recommendation is that the board approve the curriculum report.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by trustee Cardoza, seconded by trustee Nunes to accept the curriculum modified and deleted report as presented. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? No. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Next up, Mr. Perez, approval and transfer of 2022-23 one-time funds.
Yes, good evening, Board. This is, last board meeting, this was an information item. Just to go back to provide some information, this is part of our integrated planning, decision-making process, to our resource allocation manual. Three-legged stool, if you remember that, we have the base budget augmentation, above base, and then if we foresee, the president and myself foresee any unspent surplus at the end of the year, we work on a plan, look at our district liabilities, what we have out there, to where we can put these dollars. So the first one is the COS Special Reserve, $5 million. And for those in the audience that are not aware of this, the Chancellor's Office gave districts the emergency conditions allowance. It means we're being funded off FTS that we earned in March of 20, because they knew once the pandemic hit, students would leave. They didn't want districts to be hurt financially. So year to date, we've received $11.6 million. So we want to put $5 million into that special reserve through the end of this calendar year, because this is the last year that the emergency conditions allowance is available to us, just to make sure the Chancellor's Office is not going to pull anything and pull anything back. So $5 million there. The Tulare Career Technical Education Building, that's pretty much, they're started to break ground, right, Luann?
Yep.
All right. We do need $5 million for the completion of that. As Byron mentioned, we are looking at some value engineering, nothing negative about the building, but what we can do to do some cost savings measures there. And then $1 million in the technology department. Their original request was almost $4 million. Again, it's for desktop refresh, our internet replacement, our cabling, more Wi-Fi that you see in the classrooms and the offices. So the recommended action today is to approve these three transfers in the tune of $11 million into the special reserve, CTE, and the technology department. Just to want to also let you know, our estimated surplus is about $11.5 million. We expect that to grow as the end of fiscal year ends. The likelihood of everybody spending 100% of their budget is they won't. So we're looking at a little more fallout at the end of the year.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Okay, so with that explanation, Mr. President, I would move that we adopt Resolution 2023-02.
By Trustee Nunes, seconded by Trustee Cardoza, to accept the resolution as cited. All those in favor, let's see, that is a roll call. Sorry.
Trustee Nunes?
Aye.
Trustee Cardoza?
Aye.
Trustee Macareno?
Aye.
Trustee Lane?
Aye. And Trustee Sherman is listed as absent. All right. Sir, you are up again for contract with Follett Higher Ed Group for COS Bookstore Management?
Yes, our contract with Barnes & Noble is our bookstore that we've had, Barnes & Noble that had been here on campus for 9 years, ended March 31st. We did a request for proposal, and Barnes & Noble and Follett both presented documents. In the second page, you'll see the criteria that the selection committee used. Can you blow that up for my old eyes, please? Thank you, Megan. Again, and we didn't want this to be fully on financial and commissions. We looked at a few things. I do want to point out, though, as you see bolded there, the commissions, Follett and Barnes & Noble, $133,000 difference. Do that over 5 years, $667,000. Leaving, not going with Barnes & Noble, but staying with them and not going to Follett. If we didn't go to Follett, we'd lose $667,000. Then capital investment, Follett said they'd help us out with $35,000 to revamp the current bookstore, though honestly, we don't want to revamp it too much because we're building the University Center and the Student Union. So we want to save those dollars for later. Then local advertising, $4,000 a year. Sponsored events, $2,000. Textbook, scholarships, both Follett and Barnes & Noble provide $5,000. If you go scroll down some more, Megan, thank you. General scholarships, again, another $5,000 for Follett. So if I took the ones that were yearly, it added up to $55,000 over 5 years that Follett would be additional to us. So if you take the 667 and the 55, it's 722,000 over the life of the contract by going to Follett that we would see revenue-wise. Then again, we looked at price match. They both said yes. Higher COS students, yes. COS discounts, of course. Region 5 are community colleges in our region. The only one currently with Barnes & Noble is Yosemite Community College District. The other ones, Kern just left Barnes & Noble and went to an online bookstore. San Joaquin Delta is in-house, auxiliary. Then what I also thought was interesting is Fresno State. As you know, we're building a university center. Fresno State's going to be right here. They're partners with Follett. So what a great opportunity to have a bookstore that serve our students and the universities. Well, they're going to be all of our students, but the university center also. And then the scoring, Follett with 92.75, and then Barnes & Noble 90. We did meet with the Follett team, pending your approval tonight. We did meet with them about a transition plan. They've met with Barnes & Noble and Follett. They're used to going back and forth. Because one leaves, one comes in, so they're used to dealing with each other. Tomorrow, if you approve today, tomorrow our COS team will have a kickoff meeting. And if everything goes well tonight for the vote, Barnes & Noble will cease operations April 21st, I do believe. They'll be closed for 2 weeks. May 8th, Follett will come on board. The good thing is student regalia is done already. The faculty staff regalia is through, I just forgot, what's her name? I just drew a blank. Herf, I think it is. So it's outside vendor.
Herf Jones. Herf Jones.
Herf Jones, excuse me, thank you. So we'll get that order from Charles, and we'll move forward there. And really, the other thing that was a stickler that Charles mentioned was Scantrons, Blue Books, what have you, for students for finals. We'll make sure that those are given to students at free of cost, no cost to them, because we are migrating. Might ask me is why are we moving now?
Yeah.
Their contract is it's their calendar year. So their calendar year for Barnes & Noble ends March. Notably, we would have done it until summer, but there was no choice if we were going to move forward. We'd had to do that. So we're all facing a lot of anxiety right now by transition, but I think we have it pretty well intact there. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. And if you don't have any questions, recommended action is to approve a 5-year contract with Follett Higher Education Group from May 3rd through April 30th of 28.
Question?
Bookstore, or does Barnes & Noble, did they oversee the apparel?
Yes,
So then it would be Follett then that would oversee?
overseeing the apparel.
Okay.
See what, I'm sorry?
The apparel.
Apparel?
Swag.
The swag, and if you
Swag.
go to Fresno State's bookstore, take a look at their swag. They guaranteed that their swag, our swag will be like their swag, so. a little
Like
better.
it? Thank you.
Just a question, if Follett is coming in the day after Barnes & Noble is ending, do they have any desire to fill in that sort of interim gap of disposable items?
Yeah,
or
what happens is,
consumable items?
when Barnes & Noble closes, they'll do an inventory. Fallout will come in, check a look at that inventory, accept that inventory, and then they might open a pop-up store
Yeah,
just
that's
to
what's-
serve the immediate needs of the students,
Right.
but then officially grand opening May 8th.
Questions?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by trustee Cardoza, seconded by trustee Macarena to accept the proposal as stated to migrate our bookstore. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Unanimous is passed. Thank you. And last item, I think, for you is the informal bid award for roof replacement.
Yes, I'm pitch hitting for Byron Woods. They're expecting their 4th child. If not tonight, will be for sure tomorrow. So wish them all the best. This is an informal bid to accept their roofing replacement for the Morrow and the Potwasher buildings. You'll see the background that we buy the material, and they're going to buy some miscellaneous material and labors. And the total cost of that is $113,000 for the material that we're purchasing. We did a RFP, There was two bidders that came in. The lowest bidder was $172,000, and I think that's on your second page. Fresno Roofing came at $172,000. Nations Roofing West, $186,577. So we are going, of course, with the low bid, and we plan on doing this over the summer. Again, it's funded by state scheduled maintenance dollars that we can do roofing with. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you all may have.
Formal bid or informal bid? What?
Informal bid, which means we piggybacked on another bid.
Okay.
So, yeah. Formal bid, we would have to advertise it in the paper and do sealed bids, what have you, but we used an existing contract out there.
Square footage then, or how do you piggyback?
Piggyback, you call CMAS piggyback. If another community college or
Yeah.
state agency
Right.
has a contract already, it's been approved, districts are allowed to, what they call piggyback.
So is that based upon a square
Yes,
footage?
square footage and
Okay.
cost, yes.
Okay, I was wondering. Okay, any other questions? Action?
Move for approval?
Second.
Moved by trustee Nunes, seconded by trustee Cardoza to accept the recommendation for the Patwisha roof replacement as outlined. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is that common in the schools? Sorry, one just dumb question. To buy the stuff and then have someone else put it on? Is that,
It's not common, but when we start looking at the vendor's markup, it's more advantageous for us to buy it.
I don't know that I've ever seen that, but I can't say I've done a lot of roofing projects either in school, so, thank you. Just curious.
Calvin, approval of appointment of members on the Measure J.
Thank you,
Citizen.
President Lane. Yes, when we sold the final $22 million or so from Measure J from back in 2008, we had to get the band back together, the Measure J Oversight Committee. We were lacking a student because we put it together last spring as the school year was ending. We had to wait until this fall, and we did, thanks to Dr. Waldner's efforts, we did find a student willing to serve. That's Gloria Ramirez, and she attended our last meeting and has said that she can serve out the duration. So with your approval, we'll add her formally to the Measure J Oversight Committee.
Okay, well, since she's already attended a meeting,
Yeah, really.
You better approve
I'm
it.
gonna
She didn't walk
happily,
away.
We didn't vote on anything. If that makes
I
you feel
would,
better.
I would,
We wanted to ease her in.
I would approve the nomination of Gloria Ramirez to the Measure J Oversight Committee.
Second.
Moved by trustee Nunes, seconded by trustee Macareno to accept the recommendation as stated. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes unanimously and with those in that are present. Next up is board policies, the second read. Dr. Calvin?
Yes, item 15 is a second read on these 8 board policies. You've seen them before. You saw them in March. I'm happy to revisit any of them. Again, new language is bold and underlined, and any omitted language has a line through it. Pretty self-explanatory, but happy to answer any questions you might have.
On 2100, I think it's a typo, but look on 2100 on the back page. There's a number 6 there, and I don't think that goes there because that doesn't, it doesn't seem to fit, right? That was also online, so I just, it seems like it doesn't belong there because I don't recognize,
Would it be 2015?
no, 2100. Look
No,
on-
I understand,
Oh,
but I
okay,
mean,
yeah, oh,
should
would it
it-
go to 2015?
If we go to student number.
But the number still doesn't fit, so I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like it normally ends by the approval process, and then there's a second one on the next page.
Yeah, and I think an elected position, if it's any of us, we wouldn't be filled by the Student Senate Membership Committee, would we? See what I'm saying? Because that's under our board elections. That makes
Unless
sense?
we're talking about this, like,
Right, but that'd be, then it wouldn't
Max.
go
I
under.
wonder, I just think maybe when I combined all this into a PDF, something happened with the pages.
Yeah, so this doesn't go
I'll
here at all.
double check everything, but no,
Yeah,
you're
no,
right.
I'm okay as
I'm
long as I
looking
know
at
that
it. I
that's
think
what
when-
it looks like.
Yes.
Yep, okay.
We'll verify that, but there's no numbers on the front
Yep,
side of
okay.
this.
I
I think
just
that
wanted
was
to correct that.
Yeah, something with probably copy.
I think that when I put it together as a PDF, like a page got swapped somehow.
Good
Yeah,
catch.
Good catch. I wouldn't even, I wasn't even looking at the second page.
Well, I read it and I thought, wow, a student senate membership committee picks a board member? I never knew that. But then I'm like, wait, that can't be right. I don't know, but our student rep got something in there. I didn't see that.
Serious power over there. Carboni.
You've been,
It is a
Yeah.
second read, so it's already made it through once. No,
Second and final.
I'm thinking it was a typo. And I honestly looked at this morning and meant to text you and then, or email you, forgot, and thought if I look back, I probably would have seen that it's not on last month's.
I'll confirm.
I just want to make sure it's off this time.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
no worries. So with that, I approve.
and I will
Move to
second.
approve. Yeah, thanks.
Sorry, who's second?
Ken.
Ken, okay. Moved by trustee Cardoza and seconded by trustee Nunes to accept the second read and pass the board policies listed on the agenda. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? No. Passes unanimously. Trustee Sherman not in attendance. Item 16 is the first read for a number of policies.
That's right. We've got 7 we're seeing for the first time, or at least the board is seeing for the first time tonight. 2310, which is regular meetings of the board. 2315, which is closed sessions. 2320, special and emergency meetings. 2330, quorum and voting. 2340, agendas. 2350, speakers, and 2355, decorum. As a refresher, what we do on a 5-year cycle is pull up our board policies. Our chancellor's office provides updates as a result of law or other policy. We update it appropriately. With these 7, there's not a lot of new information with the exception of 2310. You see in bold and underlined, we added, or they recommended that we add a heading and subsequent text for meetings during proclaimed states of emergency. Obviously, this came up during COVID. Nobody was prepared for it, so we've got that in place. The other 6, very little. We've changed the title of our organization to Sequoias Community College District in several places, but otherwise, not a lot until you get to 2355. We did add one item under decorum. Happy to answer any questions you might have, and we'll see this again in May.
So far, we haven't had any trouble that I could recall with 2355, but you never know.
Bring in the artillery. Any questions on any of the first read?
Move to approve the first readings as presented to move on to second.
Second?
Second.
Moved by trustee Cardoza, second by trustee Macareno to move the policies listed under item 16 to a second read. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? No. Passed unanimously with trustee Sherman absent. Unless board members or have any other items, we don't see any. Stand adjourned. Thank you.